Okay, so I'm going to talk about two approaches we took at Nottingham Trent University to intercultural communication training. Um, one, the first one that we did was quite structured. Um, Probably not doing what Meg said, which was around co-creation of content. And I think really that was because we were asked to do some training for about 120 teachers in different schools across the university, and we didn't have the time. It was um, quite a short time frame. After that, we then got involved with a program that was very much echoes what Meg talked about, which was around co-creation, talking to different teachers, almost building your content based on what teachers really want and really need. But that needs time. And then the second difference between the two sets of training were the first one was very much teacher focused. It was about teacher training. The second one was more around helping, working with teachers to train students in intercultural communication. Um, and the two were very, very different. The one being more structured and the one being more very, very organic, with some very different outcomes and some very different resources that were produced. So I'll start with the first one, which was the more structured training. So we'd been asked by several schools that they wanted teacher training in intercultural communication. And as I said, we trained about 120 students, um, teachers, and um, we had some content already, and we came up with a list of ideas, and we gave each school a menu. We discussed with them, what is it you really want, and we gave them a list of some kind of core intercultural communication content that we were going to include in the train, and asked them to choose. So there was choice, but it wasn't like we'd created the content together. Um, and also we fit into each school's time scale. So we had some sessions were 2 hours, some sessions were a whole morning. So it just depended on time available and really what each school wanted. Yeah, and then so in terms of the content and the key core content of the training, so it was quite similar. So we'd start with, what is culture, looking at culture shock. Um, Christina mentioned visible and invisible differences and similarities, which is the core concept as well. Um, but then we also had this, we also had a request around classroom management. So some schools said, well, we want more the practical aspect rather than the kind of theoretical ideas within intercultural communication. And so that was quite interesting for us because I think as EAP teachers, we taught international students for many years, and this is our expertise in that, we could bring in ideas around pronunciation of names, making content really clear visually, not overloading text, using simple English. There was a whole rafter of ideas around classroom practice that we shared in the training, which was really useful. And then we also had some schools were actually saying, well, can you take the perspective of the learner journey from the point where they arrive in the UK, or they, arrive in a different place, as in some cases, because it's not always students coming from overseas. This applies to all students, really. So that was another angle. And then Meg also mentioned, allying EDI and intercultural communication. So one of the schools we did delivered the training to, the science school, they wanted more around EDI and stereotypes and inclusivity. So there were these kind of slight differences. So and this is an example unit. So this is one on stereotyping and inclusivity, and we would have got through something like this in around about 30 minutes, 30 to 35 minutes. So we focused on what it is, what is stereotyping, all the kind of language around racism and microaggressions, etc. But then took that little bit of theory and put that into the teacher's context, making it relatable. What does this mean? What is inclusion in your professional practice? And then we would go on to looking at intercultural incidents, and we use this kind of approach in terms of role play and scenarios in quite a number of the units. And these are all realistic scenarios that our teachers have talked to us about, and then we would get them in groups to discuss, well, what would you do in this situation? And this was a nice approach, and it echoes as well. Meg mentioned earlier about making sure that you get diverse voices, that you're including lecturers in the content. You're not actually telling them what to do, you're eliciting ideas from them, and that was very much the focus of all the training. And then so just to give you an idea of one of the units we did, and then the second type of training we did came as a result of 4 people from different departments being very interested in creating a very different form of intercultural communication teacher training. So it was someone from the Global Lounge, myself, another colleague, learning and development manager within the School of Art and Design, and then someone from EDI. And we happened to just get together, chat, and then we formed this project group to develop this training, which again was very, very different to the training I've just talked about. So really our approach was very equitable, as Meg mentioned earlier. So we'd come together voluntarily. We all had different perspectives. We didn't really have a structure. We didn't say, well, you have a role in this project. We all just did the work. We all tried different things. We then as well set up lots of focus groups over the summer. Again, we had time to do this, and we met a number of lecturers within the School of Art and Design and talked to them about intercultural communication, and talked about what's going on in your lectures. What have you done? Can we share ideas? What do you think the training should look like? And so this then turned into a project which then focused on creating resources collaboratively that the lecturers could use within their classrooms. And the beauty of this was it had some kind of longevity, and it had we created a resource bank together that still continues in a very equitable way. And it changed, we as needs arose, we changed the training differently. So we still had workshops, we still had sessions, but we had a number of other things going on, including time to create resources. We set up a community of practice so we could share ideas. And these were the things that were going on after the sessions. So again, very, very, very different. And the framework was really, we did have a framework to the actual, or loose framework, I might say, where we divided the focus of the training into personal, social, and then professional. And these are some of the three strands that intercultural communication is often divided into, because it's a way of showing the benefits as well. So it starts with developing self, thinking about your own identity, then going on to thinking about your behaviors, your attitudes, etc. And then the second part was also then focusing on the social. So once you've developed self and thought about think about your attitudes to the subject, you can then go on to actually then demonstrate this within social settings. And that's a benefit as well. You know, they're all benefits. Developing yourself personally, developing yourself socially, and then developing yourself professionally, because if you are much more curious, more open, more able to negotiate, deal with conflict, then you've got some key competencies for the world of work. So that's really the loose framework of our approach in terms of the training. And then, as I said, we had these other things that developed from the training. So within our training sessions, we shared resources that we had developed. We shared resources that other lecturers had developed. We set up a team site where lecturers could upload the resources they'd created, or lessons that they'd done, or 5-minute activities they'd use with their students. We also had things like cards within the resources, lesson plans, and these design sprints, which were just where we got together away from the training and just created and talked and shared our ideas. And also as part of that, so the lecturer would go away, and then there was a feedback form that if ever they used anything new or they adapted any of the resources within the bank, then we could gather feedback on it from the students and from them to see what they thought of it. So, as I mentioned, this has longevity. It's not like you come along to the training and then, okay, thanks very much, that was useful, bye, and never hear from anyone again. We're building something here. So, in terms of my perspective, this is the community of practice, and the way we approach this training has been more successful. It's got a number of additional benefits to it. So that was our approach. Thank you very much for listening. I'm just sharing our reference list with you. This will be made available within the TED in EAP team site. And once again, I just want to thank Christina and Meg. And any questions, please get in touch with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Stella. Thanks, Christina. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.